great temptation to not speak it with a mic, but I know that the media people always yell at me when I do that. So if we can get a recording of this, it's apparently much better. It's also much more authoritative to talk with a mic and I can do my radio voice. I'm also going to annoy the light guys by pacing, but that tends to be what I do. There's lots of seats. If you go through and then cut in and intersperse yourself, that can tend to be helpful. I've been appointed the official critic for youth and multiculturalism for the past few weeks. And it's been, for me, sort of an extension of what it is that I've been doing, not just for the past year as a politician, but for the past number of years as an environmental activist, but more as a youth activist, which is getting out and talking to young people about how important it is to get involved. Young people, in general, get a pretty bad rap for being disconnected, disengaged, and apathetic sometimes. But the one thing that I realize is that, and it is obvious for all to see, is that if there are moments when young people are, a little bit cynical, a little bit disengaged, it's not because we don't care about the world, but because we care so much, we're deeply frustrated that we don't get to be given tools or voices that our voices be heard to shape the world around us. And that's something that for me is a major issue that we have to change. Because the world we're looking at is facing big questions and big crises over the next few years. Whether it be environmental, whether it be the way we look at human rights and justice around the world, whether we look at poverty that exists, whether we look at the problems with resource scarcity that are coming up for either economic reasons or conflict reasons or, again, extreme weather event reasons. We've got some big challenges ahead of us. And the one thing we're going to have to do collectively as a civilization is have some real conversations and ask ourselves some tough questions about it. And dare to come up with innovative solutions. Challenge the status quo. Not be afraid of change. Not be afraid of questioning some of the basic assumptions that got us to this point. Assumptions that we don't even realize we're making. Assumptions that have been programmed into successful human communities and individuals and civilizations since the dawn of time, because they work. Things like, there's always more room. We can always expand. We can always find new resources when we use up the resources around here. That thinking led us to travel and conquer the world, settle the planet. We're now down to haggling over who owns the mud at the bottom of the Arctic floor under the North Pole. We've accounted for every corner of this planet in terms of where the resources are and what we draw from. And the world has gone from being so big it seemed flat and infinite thousands of years ago to the past 100 years or so being extremely finite, bounded, a closed system, where everything we remove from the system or transform within the system is not immediately replaced. And everything we discard within the system, into our rivers and streams, into our oceans, into our atmosphere, into our landfills, sticks around. We've never been programmed to have that level of consequence included in our decision making. But now in the 21st century, that's a shift we have to make. The other shift is we now can no longer wait for the crises to hit before we start to react to them. Because the scope of change, the intensity of the various crises, means that we can't react. We won't be able to react if we get a 3 or 4 degree temperature change in the average weather, average temperature of the Earth. We cannot react to some of the changes that are coming. We have to head them off. We have to start shifting our behaviors now rather than in the future. And that means basing ourselves on our science, on our expectations, on our knowledge, on the tools, on the considerable tools that we have. But we have to start doing things differently. And our political structures, our economic structures, our communities are designed to be stable. I mean, by very definition, A stable society must be resistant to change. The problem is, we have to call that into question. We have to challenge that. But change isn't easy, because so many people have vested interest in the system as it is now. The people with the power in the system that we have now are the ones who are most interested in not changing it, and are therefore very resistant to the idea that maybe the system needs transforming. It happens in politics, it happens in big business, it happens in community organizations as well. It happens at all levels. And that's where the kinds of thinking that young people are demonstrating time and time again is so important. We say that young people are getting less involved. That's actually not true. More young people than ever before are getting involved in non-governmental organizations. Big single-issue causes, whether it be Greenpeace, Amnesty International, or some of the other great international organizations that are out there fighting for an issue, bringing forward concerns. But also in local levels. School politics, school organizations, neighborhood initiatives, local food banks, local recycling programs. Young people are getting involved. They just don't find that politics is a particularly interesting use of their time. Picking a political party and running with it, and stuffing envelopes, and knocking on doors, and promoting this red team, or this blue team, or this orange team as being the team that's going to fix things, seems ludicrous, particularly when we see that more and more politics, especially these days, is about short-term electoral strategies. We're figuring out a way to attain a little more power, get a few more seats here, a few more seats there. The politics of attack, politics of division, which are extraordinarily effective. I mean, it's easy to get elected. Pick a group with enough votes, you pander to them, you piss on the other group, you completely marginalize them, brush them aside because they have less votes. You're going to get yourself elected in our first-past-the-post system. Stephen Harper is proof of that. But it's no way to govern a country responsibly. It's no way to pull together all of our forces, all of our extraordinary diversity. We're a country that is strong, not in spite of its diversity, but because of it. And the capacity to get people to pull together and realize that, yes, we have differences, but the commonalities, the shared values, the shared hopes, dreams, the desire to build a better society, to continue this extraordinary project that is Canada, is something that unites us all. Always easier to divide, always harder to bring together, to build, to propose. Right now, politics has fallen into easy sound bites. Politics of spin and superficiality and headlines and attacks, and we're all guilty of it because that's the way the machine works. But for me, the only way of breaking that cycle, because the machine works that way, Canadians of all ages are getting more cynical and tuning out and turning it off. But younger people, because of their idealism, because of our demands for a better world, are much more likely to say, why should I bother? Why should I encourage them with my vote or with my hard-fought volunteerism? There's a lot of other things I can do to really try and shift the world. And that is what we have to change. That's where talking about politics not as electoral advantage or strategy, but as a conversation that all Canadians take part in about where we're going as a society, about what to invest in, about what hard choices to make. Do we invest more in healthcare? Do we invest more in schools? Do we invest more in helping the planet, addressing environmental issues? Do we address the crippling poverty around the world? Do we invest more here, there, and everywhere? And how do we pay for it on the other side? Where does that money come from? Difficult choices. Do we raise taxes? Do we cut services from one place to pay another place? How do we create a prosperity, an economic prosperity, that's going to allow us